Welcome back, everyone. Another windy day, so I have to change my plans. I was going to go outside today. You may have noticed I've had a channel name change to Unshackled Wisdom. That's in alignment with a new book that I'll be bringing out early next year, but I'll talk about that in another video. Today, I wanted to come on and speak to you about something so important that's overlooked, particularly as we get older, the importance of retaining muscle mass, because without it, you're going to age a lot faster. And as you know, I'm going into my 70th year next year, and I've had to make some huge changes, obviously from the cancer diagnosis I had, which now I've healed, and from making these changes, which included incorporating more vigorous exercise into my life to build muscle that I saw was starting to decrease. And as a senior, it's so important because muscle's tied in with our mental strength as well. We have a weak body, we're going to have a weak mind. And it's been shown that the mitochondrial integrity starts to change the more sedentary we become. And for most seniors, and look, it's actually happening to younger people too. They're losing muscle mass far quicker than they have in previous generations, and basically setting the scene for, problems, big problems as they become older, in their ability to just carry out the daily functions of living, their capacity to be able to just lift, say, a pot plant and move it around, a heavy pot or a big basket of laundry, or just stretch up and reach something, or open a jar. People take these things as when they occur as part of aging, but that's not the case, because the mitochondrial function is slowing down, and when that slows down, we're more susceptible to things like dementia, Alzheimer's, cancers, diabetes, rheumatoid arthritis, other autoimmune disorders, which really are just mirroring the fact that our mitochondria function is inefficient. It's slowing down. So we need to get that function up. I mean, it's been shown too that people who stay active and have had very active lives and continue to be active all throughout their life, they retain a high level of mitochondrial function, and hence don't succumb to these kind of conditions. So, most people think it's normal and natural when they retire or as they get older to become more sedentary. It's just part of finishing your working life, perhaps. You're entitled to kick back, be a bit more comfortable, indulge in things you might not more often, and consequently find you just become weaker and weaker. But of course, once you start to lose muscle and your ability and strength to carry out certain things, you're going to lose your independence, and you're more likely to have that taken into assisted living. And I saw it happen with my own father. I'm just getting older, but it doesn't have to be that way. So I wanted to really get across how important it is to keep muscle mass on. The more studies are showing how important skeletal muscle is in all the overall functioning of our body and the continuation of that as we age. It never was shown to be as important as it is, but I'm sure that, we all know that once we do lose muscle mass, people will go, well, they're becoming frail. They're more susceptible to falls. They're more susceptible to, breaking arms and breaking hips and all kinds of things, because you're losing your core strength. So for me, the most important thing is to keep this core strength on. And what I found is, and might be something for you to think about, often we get signs before some kind of, let's say, dysfunction in our homeostasis, in, say, cancer. Well, obviously I did have bladder cancer, but I had signs. As I look back in hindsight, I can see there were certain things that were telling me that my mitochondrial function was slowing down and it was not operating the way it was meant to. So what I noticed was that I was getting more muscle fatigue. Now, as it turns out, about a third of the population of adults say that they feel more muscle fatigued. So that's a sign. For instance, I used to go to the gym like 15 years ago, and I'd be quite happily, lifting weights and pulleys and all kinds of things. So when I started to do some more hand weights, and they were a little bit heavier, after about 3 or 4 repetitions, I was starting to get really fatigued in the muscles. So that was telling me the cells weren't functioning, the mitochondria, as well as they could be optimally. Mitochondria were struggling. So there were little other things that were happening. Loss of strength. Now, I always pride myself on being quite strong, even though I'm petite. I had good strength in my hands. I used to do a lot of body work back in a few decades ago. And yeah, I prided myself, and I had small hands, long fingers, but a lot of strength in my hands. So I noticed that starting to change. And of course, once we find we're getting fatigued, if we start doing some exercise, well, we tend to give it away and just go, well, let me just go back to the couch. And so one exasperates the other, but we need to push through that in order to have a path of aging that's fulfilling, that you're able to do all the activities that you want to do, as well as just carrying out normal day-to-day things. It's just imperative, and it doesn't get stressed enough how important it is. And again, high carb diets, veganism. I used to see so many people, as they became older, they become weaker, and you're not getting all of the 20 amino acids. I mean, there's 9 essential ones that can only come from animal foods, but the others, you need to combine them. We taught the branch chain amino acids would have to be combined with non-essential amino acids to get a complete protein. So in a plant-based diet, you'd be having things like sprouted lentils, or cooked lentils and different types of beans, but they'd be missing certain amino acids. So then you'd combine them with others. It's too much figuring out, and people just don't get it right. And look, it just doesn't build the muscle and keep it on. Now, I found that once I went high fat, zero carb, through treating this cancer diagnosis and sailing through it and coming out the other side, that I not only gained weight, but it was muscle. It wasn't fat. I had no fat. I've got muscle now on my arms and legs. And it's so important to keep this core strength, because this is what is insurance against having these falls. You're more solid in your legs. And the first thing that tends to disappear from people is this core strength. They become more unbalanced and more susceptible to falls and breaks, hip breaks. So this is such an insurance, keeping muscle mass on. And people go, I can't be bothered. But seriously, there's nothing more it's priceless, really, as insurance for having the quality of life you want as you get older, and not going down this sickness route and losing your independence. I saw it happen with my own father, and it was so unnecessary. In fact, it's been shown that people who are active throughout their whole life and into their senior years, their mitochondria function doesn't dissipate. It's almost like it was when you were much younger, and consequently you don't have these illnesses plaguing you from your poor mitochondrial action, going on. So it's really, really important, and you want to keep your mental faculties sharp. Keep the muscle on your body, and it's worth it. So people say to me, I want to go to the gym, it's too hard. It's small, incremental, consistent steps every day that determine your success and the quality of life you're going to have. I'll talk more about this in other videos. But what I wanted to mention particularly is here's an example of what I say about how important animal foods are in your diet. You must have them. And there's a prison that was built several years ago in El Salvador, SECOT, or SECOT it's also called, where all the housed, I guess, gang members that were terrorizing the criminals and terrorizing people of El Salvador. It just wasn't safe to go out anywhere at night. They were all rounded up over a couple of years and sent to this massive, biggest prison with the highest security. Now here were young men that joined a lot of these gangs, and strapping young men, good musculature. And once they got into this prison, which they weren't getting out of, their diet shifted dramatically. They know, the prison authorities, that to deprive these men of any animal foods would make them weaker in their mind, more compliant, and weaker in their bodies, hence being able to be managed and controlled. So this isn't just an accident. They were given only a vegetarian diet: beans, rice, basically some eggs, a little cream, but no meat whatsoever, because you can't have that fueling testosterone production and giving people mental strength and fueling up their bodies. So there's so many other examples that have shown that when you take animal foods away, people do become weaker in mind and body. So, and the hormones, obviously, we need those. When you take it away, you don't need to have hormone replacement as you get older either. Just eat more saturated fat and more animal foods. So there's your solution. But I will talk about it more in other videos, how important it is. Even if you just start every day doing some squats. What I do also is a type of squat where I start to focus on developing more of the core strength, the thigh muscles, because what I found is the stronger I'm becoming now, I feel a lot more confident on walking on uneven ground, and I've got far better footing, because obviously as you get older and you're surprised if you've been, oh my gosh, I'm not as stable as I was. Well, this is indicative that things are starting to deteriorate, so we can halt this. All right, so if you're in your 60s, heading up higher, must incorporate more muscle strengthening exercise every day. It's hard work. Nothing comes easily, but it's going to be worth it. You'll find as you go along, you're far more able to do lifting than you were before. I can do things now that I was struggling with about 3 years ago. I can do it far more easily. And I expect that to even increase as my strength increases and my muscle mass increases. All right, so thanks for joining me today, and I'll see you all again soon. Bye for now.